Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Land. I am Chelsea. Today I'm going to be talking about read-alouds that we have done this school year so far. Let you know how we're enjoying them, if we did, didn't, what we did to go along with them, and all that stuff. We homeschool year-round, so when I say this year, I just mean for us this like academic year for us personally, which started in June. Well, this is when I started tracking them anyway. I had books I read before June because we typically normally actually start in like February, March. But anyway, so this is what we started in June. It is now February. Some of these books I have with me today, some were from the library and I no longer have them, or some I've loaned out to people so I don't have them to show you. But if I have them here, I will show them to you. If not, I will try to pop a picture up of them, and then in the description box, I will link every single book. So if it sounds good to you, you can just click that link, go to Amazon, and buy it, or, you know, of course, go to the library and check it out. So I have 5 children, ages 3 to almost 12. And they all sit and listen to these books together with me, and we just read them aloud. Some are our afternoon read-alouds, some are evening read-alouds, just anything. This is only chapter books. This is not picture books. Obviously, that would be a very long video. And it's not any like of our books that might be in our morning basket that are just like on one subject. These are chapter books. So since June, we have read 34 books, so not too shabby. And I'm just going to start. The first one we read in June was A Nest for Celeste. I actually do own that book, but my oldest daughter is rereading it. It's in her room. I forgot to have her bring it out. So, A Nest for Celeste. This is a great one because it really fit for all my children because it had a lot of pictures in it. The chapters weren't too long, so we read a bunch at one time. And so even my younger ones could understand it, but my older ones still really got a kick out of it. It was also really good for a nature study book. It talks a lot about animals, birds in particular. It's also great for history. It goes back to, it's been a while, read it in June, 1800s, and you have Abaddon, you know, the guy who would take the birds and he would draw them while he killed them and then pinned them up. So that was a hard thing for my kids to hear, but it was a very good lesson. So we did a lot of nature studies with this book and some historical studies, and my kids really, really enjoyed it. It's one of their favorite books. So that was A Nest for Celeste. I didn't write down the authors' names for these because I just keep in my planner the books we read and the months we read them for our read-alouds. But it will be linked down below. So, great nature study book. After that, we went on to Abel's Island, which I do think I pulled out. So, it was another mouse book, so it was kind of funny mouse-to-mouse book. This was a Newbery Honor, and it is very good. Also really good for nature studies, because you have the mouse, of course, but then you have other animals that he meets along the way. Also very good for weather studies, because he gets dragged away in a big storm and ends up on an island, right? For a mouse, it's just like, you know, sand in a puddle. But by himself, and it goes through weather and seasons. So you can do a lot of science study, nature study in this book. And my kids all really liked it. It's pretty short. It only took us a few days to get through. It has some good pictures in it. A lot of good, you even have like insect studies, just all kinds of science-y nature stuff in this book. And even relationship stuff and just emotional studies, like how would you feel if you were alone and you didn't see your people? And he kind of starts imagining things. He makes like a rock statue of his wife and talks to that. So you get to talk about a lot of really good, important stuff from this book, Abel's Island. After that is when we first started reading incorrigibles. You hear me talk about that probably all the time, especially if you follow me on Instagram. The Incorrigibles of Ashton Place, you can tell we love it. We read the whole series. I own the first 3. The rest were from the library. I'm going to buy the rest. I'm actually making unit studies to go with these. And when I do, I will let you guys know so that you can check them out and look at them. It'll be fun. So, we read all 3. So the first one was The Mysterious Howling. And I will let you know, this says it's for ages 8 to 12. All of my kids absolutely loved the whole entire series. Yes, it uses some big words, but you know what? Explain those big words, use it as a teaching moment. They all got it. Even my son, who was 7 when we started the series, he's 8 now, he understood way more than I thought he would be able to. Even my 5-year-old, who was 4, understood a lot. And it gave me a chance to really talk about some big, interesting words that we might not have talked about otherwise at that age level. And then, of course, my older kids loved it. This also takes place in the late 1800s to like early 1900s. Queen Victoria is mentioned. I will tell you, when we first started reading it, it took us a few chapters to start enjoying it. It was a chore kind of for me to read because I felt like they're not understanding this. And I do think at first, just the way it's written is different, and now we love it. But at first, it was just a little bit more of a challenging read for them to listen to when we first started, compared to things like Abel's Island and Nest for Celeste. So they just had to get used to it. But once we were a few chapters in, I mean, they were on the edges of their seats, couldn't wait to hear, wanted me to keep reading. They would ask for extra chapters. We would have days, like every Saturday would be all day incorrigible day, and we would just read until my throat hurt. That's how much they loved it. Highly recommend it. It does, later on in the series, talk about a seance, and that worried me a little bit. It did not go into detail. I just explained to them what that was and that we should not do that, but it didn't go into detail. It twisted it and made it funny and silly, and it was not bad. So, The Mysterious Howling, it's about a governess who comes to a lord's house and helps to govern these 3 children who were found in the woods. It is a mystery. It's not solved until the very end. There are 7 books. So we did The Mysterious Howling, The Hidden Gallery, The Unseen Guest. With these books, I am going back. We've read this one twice now. We're about to start this one. Going back and doing unit studies for all of them because there is so much that can be learned, especially historically and literature-wise. A ton. And I am going and I'm finding science I can do, Latin, poetry studies. I mean, chocked full of learning. So geography-wise, just all kinds of things. I can't wait to finish the unit studies on them. We're very excited. So, The Incorrigibles of Ashton Place. Definitely check that out. After we finish, well, we didn't read them all 1, 2, 3. We would read one and then read another. And then some of these books were thrown into our school day, like as an afternoon read aloud. So sometimes in a month we are reading more than just one chapter book. We have The Cabin Faced West. You've probably read this to your children already, or I know you've probably read it. Short and sweet. I did not know it was based off a true story when I read it as a kid, so I thought that was pretty cool. Kind of like goes along with Little House on the Prairie. See, has the Laura Ingalls medal here. We read this before we started our Prairie Primer for the year. It was a good kickoff for that. Little girl moves from east to west. She doesn't like it. She has to learn to like it. She meets George Washington. So it's a very exciting story. It's very cute, short and sweet. And I think it's good to teach kids that sometimes change is hard at first. It's uncomfortable. But, you just try to make the best out of it and it can be okay. So that was fun. After that, we did Little House in the Big Woods. And I do own it. I don't know where it went. But Little House on the Big Woods, first set in the Little House on the Prairie series. We probably all know what it is. It's the Ingalls family when they lived in Wisconsin in the Big Woods. It was very fun. It went along with our Prairie Primer. So, of course, we learned history, science, nature studies, literature. We did all of our things with that. I don't think you need me to explain that too much. We all kind of know. While I'm on the topic of that, we've also read Little House. Our copies are very well loved. They've been around a long time. Tape on this one. Banks of Plum Creek. We've done all of them up to, so we have Prairie, Banks of Plum Creek, Shores of Silver Lake. And we are on Town, Little Town on the Prairie right now. I didn't pull that one out because it doesn't even have a cover anymore. So I found most of mine. I went to Goodwill one day and they had like all of them. So I bought them, but they're well loved from the previous owners and from us. So obviously you just follow the Ingalls journey as they move around and move to Indian Territory and move out of Indian Territory, and just they keep going further and further west to uncivilized land, and how the hardships they go through and how they face them, how they make it. all that stuff. And like I said, that goes with our Prairie Primer unit study book that we are doing. I can put up a card here if you want to see my video for my review on that. So we are on Town right now, Little Town. And then let's see, we did Incorrigibles. We read a book called Soft Rain, Trail of Tears. So that'll be linked in the description box. I don't have it. It was from the library. It was a little Cherokee girl's diary about her experience on the Trail of Tears. It is historical fiction. It was good. It was kind of hard for my kids to read about it. It's sad. She has people in her family die. People get sick. Their feet are bleeding. And so it was hard. It is a children's book, but it was hard for them, especially my 5-year-old who was 4 at the time. She cried and cried. She didn't want me to keep reading it. She left the room to sit with Daddy. And it was not that intense. My other kids were sad, but okay. But for a younger kid, she couldn't understand why this was happening to the people. But it is important for them to learn that that was a part of our history, and that is something that happened, and that is something that our government did at the time, and what can we learn from that? How does that change your perspective on things? So it's very important. It was a very good read. It was not very long. We enjoyed it. I mean, it was a good lesson. All right, we also did Fantastic Mr. Fox. We like Roald Dahl a lot. This was very short. It was kind of in between. I like to take pauses in between, like I'll take a break from whatever curriculum we're using, and we'll just make up our own unit study for a book. I talk about how to do that in another video. I will maybe try to remember to pop a card up here. If I don't, go look for it. I think, read this in 2 days. Fantastic Mr. Fox. So we did nature studies, obviously, on foxes. Very detailed nature study on that. And then we found some fun art activities on Pinterest and all kinds of stuff to go along with it. Some character studies, literature studies to go with it. And then we watched the movie, which was very different, very funny, interesting little movie. So it's about, if you don't know, sorry, Fox, there's 3 farmers, and he steals ham from one and chicken from one and all kinds of stuff. They catch him, they get him trapped in his hole, and he has to find a way to save his family before they get to him. Okay, we did, I'm skipping some because some are like more of the Incorrigibles and some are more of the Little House as we go along. We did a Magic Tree House on audio tape. We did Buffaloes Before Breakfast to kind of go with our Prairie Primer. I just popped that in the car, and that is a great way to add more books to your read aloud list, because I'm sure as a homeschool family, or even if you don't homeschool and you just really enjoy reading to your kids, when you have kids, it seems like you spend a lot of time in the car, right? You're taking them to see people, and you're taking them to events they have and just errands and all that stuff. So I like to get audiobooks to pop in the car to listen to, especially if we're going to go, an hour to a hiking thing or whatnot. So it was Buffaloes Before Breakfast. It was a Magic Tree House book. I'm sure we're all familiar with how those run, right? We know how they do it, but it was about Indian tribes, and they met a little Indian boy, and he shot a buffalo, and talked about how they use the whole buffalo and how that needs to be respected, and you don't just shoot them to shoot them. And you got to, hear about what that tribe believed and how they lived. It was very fun. And then we did a Harriet Tubman book. It was one of, let's see if I can reach it, this brand, Heroes of History. And my kids enjoyed that a lot. It was also one of those, it was hard to hear about how mean they were, because my kids knew that there were slaves and they were treated poorly. But when you really get into detail about it, it's a hard thing. But again, another good lesson. What we had done was we had taken a break from our Prairie Primer, and we did a unit on the Civil War. So that was a part of that unit. I have some other books we did for that unit. John Lincoln Clem, The Civil War Drummer Boy. That was from the library. It was a very good book. It kind of makes your kids have an all new look on their childhood, because it was about a boy, you've probably heard of him, who at a very young age joined the Civil War as a drummer boy, but he was promoted, he moved up, he was, a really cool person. So my kids liked that one also. Where are we? We did The Wizard of Oz. I had never read The Wizard of Oz before. We've all seen the movie, of course. So this was a really fun read. It was short. It took us I think it took us a week, but I also got sick during that time with strep throat. It was very hard to read, so I had to take a couple of days off. But it's very, very different from the movie. So it was very fun to watch this and then watch the movie, and we realized that this is actually, what's that new, not Wizard of Oz, but the other one, like Oz, the Great and Powerful with James Franco and all that, has a lot from that in it as well. So we didn't know about that. We all know what the Wizard of Oz is about, though, so I'm not going to take time to explain that. Where are we? We did, where is it? Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Got this on Amazon. It has great pictures. And we watched the cartoon version, Disney's cartoon version. And then we watched, I think Disney still makes it, with the real people, Johnny Depp and all that. And yeah, so it was fun to just read this and then compare and contrast. And we had memorized the Jabberwocky, oh, that's funny, landed on it, as a poem a long time ago. So we had a lot of fun going back through that. That's just a poem that I don't know why it just has always stuck in our head, and we'll just randomly start saying it sometimes. So it was fun to read this and see which movie was more like it. I won't tell you because you can go do it, right? Alice in Wonderland. That was really fun. My kids really enjoyed that one. We didn't do any studies to go along with that. It was just a fun evening time read aloud. You could do studies on it, but we did not. All right, this was a book that our Prairie Primer asked us to read. Louis Braille, The Boy Who Invented Books for the Blind. It's very short. I did not even know about him. I had never studied him. Very short read, very easy. A couple of days, I'm pretty sure, is what we spent on it. And on the back, it shows you, or you can feel how the alphabet feels. So that's really cool. We didn't know about him, so that was fun. We all enjoyed that. And now we are on, Edward Tulane. So, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, one of my favorite children's authors, wrote it. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm sure you heard me talk about it. We all really, really liked it. Cried a few times. It was really good. It's a very simple read. I don't know what the ages are. But anyway, I read it to all my kids. They all really enjoyed it. It's not a tough read, but you get to talk a lot about perspective and feeling and all that good stuff, and how every family is different and all people are walking all different lives. And this was just another fun evening read aloud. We didn't do studies on it, but it brought a lot of really good heartfelt conversation out. I didn't tell you what it was about. It is about a little China rabbit who is owned by a doll, and he is very selfish. In the beginning of the story, the little girl goes to move and she loses him in the ocean. He is later found, and he makes his way to different families and different people in all walks of life, and so he gets treated differently by everybody, and he starts to really realize how selfish he was and what love really is, and what it's like to feel loss and pain and happiness and loneliness and abandonment and all kinds of things. And so his journey, you know, makes you feel a lot of stuff, and then the people he's with, it can really bring out a lot of emotions. And so that's why it's such a good conversation starter. You get to talk about, how did that make you feel? How would you feel if you were in that situation? What would you do? What would you be thinking? It was really good. I enjoyed it as a grown-up. It's one of my favorite books. Family Under the Bridge. Newbery Honor. It has the same illustrator that so many books do. You know, Stuart Little and Little House books and all that. And this was another short one that we didn't do any studies on it. It was an evening fun read aloud. It's about a homeless man in France and 3 little homeless children. Their mom has lost her job, so they end up going under a bridge in a little cubby that he normally stays in. So he finds them there. They all kind of become friends and family, take care of each other, and it really makes him grow as a person and realize that he can do good and he can be more than what he is, and that he can give. So it's very sweet. Because of Winn-Dixie. Okay, another fun evening time read aloud that we did. You've probably read it, you've probably heard it, you've probably watched the movie. It's again by Kate DiCamillo, I guess is how you say it. Another Newbery Award book. There was a movie for it. So it's about a little girl. Her daddy's a preacher. Her mama left. She doesn't feel real connected to her daddy. I think he's very introverted. Even with her, he stays in his own shell. She has to move. She doesn't have any friends. She's very lonely. She misses her mama. And she finds this dog, and everyone just loves this dog. This dog loves everybody, and it just forms a community. The dog kind of forces her or makes her feel comfortable enough to meet new people because the dog is going up to them, and everyone loves the dog, and that allows her to feel comfortable enough to come out of her shell and meet those people. It brings her and her dad closer. It's just a very sweet story. All right, we also read Arthur of Avalon. I don't have that. It was from the library. We learned about the story of King Arthur from Story of the World, our history book. And so I thought it would be fun to do another read aloud about him. It was not my kids' favorite, but it was okay. It went through just different stories, so it wasn't like one story that flowed all together. It was different stories. But we read it. It was fine. It wasn't their favorite. No one was excited when I started it really, but they were like, oh, it's okay, go ahead and read it. So it just tells different stories of Arthur and his knights. We did James and the Giant Peach as a unit study, taking a break from our other curriculum. And of course, we probably already know what that is. A boy, his parents die, he goes and lives with his really mean aunts until he finds some magic little green things. Well, he doesn't find them, they were given to him. And it just makes everything magical. So he goes in his giant peach across the ocean. He was in England. He goes to New York. The bugs turn into real bugs and all that stuff. So we did that as a unit study, and it was actually, I had never read the book. I had only watched the movie as a kid. So a lot of nature study and science in there, geography, history. It was really fun to do. We went back and read an incorrigible book again. We're on Little Town now. We read, this was a book that was in our morning basket, which I said I wasn't going to share, but it is a chapter book. So that's the difference. I'm not showing you the books that weren't chapter books that we read. I'm just showing you chapter books. So this is Amazon Adventures. It's a pretty old book. There's a whole bunch in a series. This is the only one we've read. I just picked this up one day at Goodwill thinking, that might work. And so it's kind of like a devotion / science. It's about a missionary and his wife, and they, they're in the Amazon, obviously, but so every chapter we'll talk about a different animal, and sometimes it goes into what the tribe is doing there, and it talks about how God created the creature and just has a nice devotional with it. So we would read this in our morning basket, and then we would look up a video on YouTube usually, about that animal so we could learn even more. If the kids really, really were enjoying that animal, we would go to the library and get extra books on it. But so daily we would read a chapter, and then we would watch a video, and then they would draw me a picture. They could write about it if they wanted to. And so we did that. I skipped some here. We did the biography of a grizzly. It's all about a grizzly bear named Wob. His mom and his siblings get shot by hunters, and I believe this was in August that we read this. It was over towards Yellowstone Park, the forest he lives in, and just his journey and his struggle, and it was kind of sad, but it was good. It was short. We did What Was the Gold Rush from the What Was, Who Was series, all about the gold rush, just to help us in our Prairie Primer studies that we were doing. And then we did a Dear America book. It was called Seeds of Hope. It was about a girl who travels with her family, kind of from the East Coast, and they get on a boat and they come over to the West Coast for the gold rush. Her mom dies along the way, and we just get to see what it was like kind of for young girls to be living in that, Wild West scenario. So they enjoyed that. It's a little bit of an older book. My two girls were the ones I was mainly reading it to. My other kids could listen, but some of the stuff was a little intense, or just a little more mature. So, but my older girls enjoyed it. We did Henry and the Clubhouse. Henry and the Clubhouse, we all know, Beverly Cleary. So Henry and his dog, they built a clubhouse. That was an audiobook that we listened to. We had a couple of field trips that week that were going to be taking us about an hour each time, so I thought this is a great time for an audiobook. We did not do any study with that. It was just that. See if I left out anything else. I don't think so. Oh, Ramona Quimby, age 8. So that was just a fun in the car audiobook also. And the kids liked that. Those are just fun, short little stories, but it does go and makes you feel family oriented, right? They're very family oriented, and so it just makes you see how other families live and what struggles they are going through, so you can deal with all of that. And I think that was 34 books, chapter books that we have read this year. I feel like there's more, but I think it's because we read so many not chapter books also to go along with our studies. So that is that. I will link all the books in my description box. If you have any questions about any of the books and you would like a further explanation, just ask me down in the comments. If you have some great chapter books that you think me and my family would enjoy, also leave that down in the comments. I was going to just do a what we read this month, but I felt like there were so many good ones. I just really wanted to get them all out there to you guys. Now this video is 26 minutes. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, so check out those books in the description box. They are great books to add to your read aloud list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you have not. I post videos up a few times a week all about homeschooling, motherhood, large family, cooking, all the things. So we will see you guys next time. Bye.